What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So, it's time for the, bi-monthly Warriors Love Fest. I do this every, so often, where I just talk about my favorite team, Steph Curry, and what is going on with them, because right now we're in the middle of Steph Curry being on one of the greatest runs we have seen probably in the history of the NBA. Tonight he posted his, I believe, 10th straight game with 30 or more points. He is drilling threes. He has like 3 games this week with 10 or more three-pointers. And the team is on a run right now. They did lose barely to the Celtics tonight, which ended a 4-game winning streak. But they've won, I think, like 5 out of 7. They're playing better right now. And even though the loss tonight is tough, Curry has been just simply incredible. So let's just talk about Curry and the Warriors and what their season has been like. So I have watched every Warriors game, basically start to finish this year. There have been, a couple times where if it's a blowout, I won't watch the last however long. But for the most part, I've watched, 97% of the minutes that the Warriors have played this year. And the predominant thing that I've noticed with this team is there's a lot of low IQ basketball being played by some specific people. There's a lot of really high IQ basketball being played by some other specific people. And they're kind of in this weird spot where they've got, a couple of really good players and a couple of guys who really know what they're doing and fit in Steve Kerr's system and are, playing at a really high level, and they have been all year. And then there's a couple of guys who are sort of up and down. They fluctuate between those two groups. And then there's a group that I just feel like doesn't really fit on this team and probably shouldn't be around moving forward. And so, there's kind of guys that they're forced to give minutes to that I ideally would not like them to have to give minutes to. And obviously, Steph has just been incredible for for most of the season. 95% of the season, Steph has just been absolutely on fire. He's been killing people. He's putting up MVP type numbers. People are even asking if right now he's playing better than he was in 2016 when he won the unanimous MVP. It's a legitimate conversation, and he's 33 years old. He has a lot less pieces around him, and so obviously the team is not winning as much as they were back then. But Steph Curry has just been absolutely sensational all year long, and particularly the past 10 games. It's just been jaw-dropping every time I watch him play. It's just something new and just exciting every single night, and I'm just lucky that I get to cheer for him on my team. So let's kind of talk about the roster, right? I think they have, like I said, a lot of players who really know what they're doing and fit on this roster. Obviously, Steph, Draymond, I think has had a good season, even though offensively we know that he's sort of fallen off as to where he was a couple of years ago, but I still think he can do some things for you. Obviously, he's still great defensively, can play make on the offensive end, knows exactly where Steph wants the ball, knows how to find him, gets him the ball in those situations to put him to be successful. So Draymond Green and Steph Curry, their two-man game works. It's worked for, 9 years now. It's continuing to work. No problems between the two of them there. Obviously, they miss Klay Thompson, but hopefully, crossing my fingers, hopefully he's able to come back fully 100% next year. Also, Kevon Looney is a guy who's been around. He was there through most of that dynasty run with KD, and he proved himself to be a really valuable asset to this team. He knows what he's doing offensively. Very smart player. Doesn't always show up on the box score, but he does the little things. I think Looney should have a spot on this team moving forward. Especially another guy like JTA, Juwan Toscano-Anderson, has just been incredible lately too. He is another one who his contributions don't always show up on the stat sheet, but we saw him tonight with that huge hustle play to save the ball going out of bounds, and Steph hit a 3 on that play. Hopefully he's okay. He's probably going to be going through concussion protocol over the next couple of days or so, and hopefully he's able to come back within a relatively short time span. But JTA is a guy who I think they need to sign tomorrow. Please sign him to a multi-year deal, get him off that 2-way contract, and get him onto the team full-time, because this is somebody who definitely deserves this roster spot. He's been working for years to work his way up to the NBA, and he's finally proven his worth. And he needs to stick around on this team for years and years, because this is a guy who can come off the bench and just make winning basketball plays. So I think particularly those 4 guys, obviously Steph, Draymond, and then Looney and JTA, I think are mainstays for this roster next year. And then other than that, really, there's kind of a lot up in the air. They have a lot of guys on minimum contracts who aren't making much money. They have a lot of younger guys. And I'll kind of go through who I think might be able to stay, but really those 4 I think are the only guys that really solidified their spot for next year's roster. And obviously include Clay in that as well. He's going to be here next year. So looking past that, I mean, you have Andrew Wiggins, who of course is making a lot of money, and he's actually been very good for them this year. I think he's kind of gone under the radar because he doesn't have to be the number 1 guy. He's not scoring as much as he has in the past, but he's been very, mostly consistent for them. There have been stretches where he's been cold, not shooting as well, but especially defensively, he's been great. There's a little graphic on Twitter that somebody I follow puts up with Wiggins Island, where they just if he plays a really good defensive game, they just Photoshop players' faces on Wiggins Island where he's locking them up, and that's been a theme this year. Really, he's been really good defensively. I think he has a case for all defense, if I'm honest. He's been really good offensively, also shooting the ball at a really high level the past month or so. He's also been very good on that end. But if they can, we know that Wiggins is a guy where if they can make a trade, if they have to, trade him somewhere else, because he's the matching salary piece, if they really want to go all in for a star. Who knows if that's actually going to happen, but he would be the guy going out. So who knows if he's actually back next year. James Wiseman is the other guy who, now he's injured. He's going to miss the rest of the season. And if they are trading for a star, he might be included in the package. He's had a very rough rookie season, been up and down. And he was just getting into a rhythm before he got hurt. And it's unfortunate that he's going to miss some time. But honestly, I think it makes the Warriors better with him not out there. It's kind of rough to say, but it's pretty clear to me. And the plus minus bears this out as well. But when I watch this team, Wiseman, while he doesn't specifically hurt them all the time, you can't just point to things that he's doing every single play that's this is why they're not scoring here, this is why they suck on defense. It's just sort of his presence out there. The plus minus says it, and he just doesn't always know what he's doing, doesn't know the right spots to be, and in Steve Kerr's complicated offense with Steph and Draymond both knowing exactly what things need to happen, having a rookie in there with 3 college games, not much experience at all, it's just going to be tough for him to acclimate to the system. So I think having a long offseason for him to really work on the mental aspect of his game will help, assuming that he does stick around for next year's roster, and him being able to really dive into the playbook and learn a lot about the NBA game. I think him having some time to do that, assuming that he's willing to put in the work, I think that'll really help him, and hopefully we'll see a different version of James Wiseman next year, because as of right now, he's just a very raw prospect. We've seen him do some amazing things this year. He's been able to show off his athleticism and his skill a couple of times and have some really jaw-dropping plays, but I think James Wiseman really needs to work on the mental aspect of his game, and I think he will, and I think he'll ultimately end up being better. Couple of other younger guys who could theoretically be included in trade packages, but I would like to see stick around. Eric Paschall, who's been hurt for the past couple of weeks, did a really nice job filling in at small ball center earlier in the year. He had a really nice run, but after that, was kind of over. He played well for about a month, and then after that, he has not been playing very well, and like I said, has been hurt for about 2 weeks now. He is another guy who, is talented and had a really good rookie season, made all rookie first team, but I'm not sure that there's a role for him long term on this team when everybody's healthy and back and ready to go. We'll have to see how he plays the rest of the year, because hopefully he'll be able to come back from that injury soon, but Paschall is another guy who I'm just not sure about, and he could potentially be included as trade bait somewhere. Jordan Poole, who has really come on the last month and a half or so since coming back from the bubble, he actually had a pretty good game tonight, and he's been playing well recently. I like Jordan Poole a lot. I think he is in that archetype of, like Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, Jordan Clarkson. You can go down the list of 6-man who comes in off the bench, microwave scorer, can get you 10 points in 5 minutes and is really able to come in and just score for you, and that's what you do, right? And not great on defense, not necessarily always super efficient, but if they're hot, they can get buckets, and that's a valuable role for a team. Jordan Poole can absolutely grow into being that type of player. He really has been that player for the past, like I said, month and a half, has been playing really well. He could be included in a trade potentially, but I would like to see Jordan Poole stick around, and I would not have said that 2 months ago, because he just wasn't in the rotation and hadn't been playing well. But since finding this new role for him, sort of playing a little bit more off ball, and running off screens and stuff and playing next to Steph, but even letting him run the show and being the point guard and running on ball, and doing things like that, really the G League bubble just gave him a ton of confidence to be able to blossom into the player that he could have been, and that he is right now. So I give credit to Jordan for really working hard on his game over the last little while, and it's paying off for him. I would like to see him stick around. You have a couple of other guys on the fringes of the rotation. Damian Lee, who has been in and out of the rotation at points this year, is a good shooter. We've seen him get hot and play a valuable role. He has also a really sneaky floater game as well, with that, getting into the paint and getting those floaters up. He, is really efficient on those. He's, just one of those scorer guys, not amazing on defense, and he can just spot up for three from you, help space the floor. Not necessarily essential long-term for this team, but he's cheap and, don't have to pay him very much to hit some threes for you. I'm okay with keeping Damian Lee around. Similar deal with Michael Mulder. He is, hasn't played much, hasn't really been in the rotation all season, but is another 3-and-D spacer type of guy, and has some sneaky athleticism as well. So those guys are not super consequential in terms of long term for this team. Lee has been in the rotation and mostly Michael Mulder has not, but they're both fine. They're cheap. It's no no problem really either way. A couple other younger guys. Nico Mannion has shown flashes at points, but clearly is not ready. Would like to see him have some more time in the G League. Alen Smailagic also needs a lot more time in the G League. I would personally like to see them just get him off the team, just because he's taken up a roster spot, could be used on something else, and he has not played much. From what I've seen from him, is not good defensively at all. You have to play him at power forward, because if you play him at center, you're going to get eaten alive inside. If he's a power forward and he struggles to guard people on the perimeter, at least you have somebody inside protecting the rim. But if he's underneath the basket and trying to stop people, the other team's just going to take it inside and score every single time. I'm telling you, dude. Alen Smailagic just not a good defensive player. He's going to have to become his ceiling right now to me is Nico Melli. That's what I see him as like a guy who can maybe, play some center minutes, spot center minutes, power forward minutes, but only if he's hitting threes, and we've seen Melli really cool off from three this year. So if Smailagic can develop at least somewhat of a consistent three-point shot, then maybe he has a role, but honestly, I would like to see him somewhere else. Also, I would like to see Gary Payton get another 10-day opportunity with them. His 10-day expired today, but he's given some really good defensive minutes. Had like 4 steals in 9 minutes the other day against the Thunder when he checked in late into that game. So I would like to see him get another 10-day and potentially keep him around going into next year. That would be nice. And then the last guy that I have not mentioned on this roster that is a big question mark for me is Kelly Oubre, because I loved the acquisition of Oubre in the offseason. They made that move to get him using the traded player exception from Andre Iguodala, brought him in, we're able to get him in there without giving up any salary. I loved the move. I thought he'd be a good fit. He was, really good for the Suns the year before, and it seemed like he would fit in with this group. There have been points when where he's, fit into the system. He's shooting well. He has become a better passer as the year has gone along. Been smarter about finding Steph at points and been smarter about giving the ball up when he needs to. So I think Oubre has made a lot of progress. But there are also times where if he's not shooting well, sometimes he'll drive into the lane against like 3 defenders and get blocked, and sometimes he won't make the right passes, and sometimes he'll commit stupid fouls on defense, although he is an overall good defender. But it's just like, does he really fit with this team? But also they need the asset, because if they give him up, they can't fill that salary slot again. So maybe they should have traded him at the deadline, especially if he says that in the interview where he doesn't want to come off the bench. I don't know if all of you guys saw, but like right after the deadline, they asked him if he'd be okay with, if he does come back to the Warriors next season, if he'd be okay with coming off the bench, because obviously Klay Thompson's going to be healthy. He's going to be starting, and presumably Wiggins is back. Draymond. There's no spot for Oubre in the starting 5, so he would be a 6th man in that scenario, right? And he basically said that he would rather not be a 6th man. He can offer a lot more than coming off the bench to a team, and it has reservations about, obviously coming off the bench. So that's the thing, right? If he doesn't want to come off the bench, then is there a role for him? Is he going to leave in free agency? I have no idea. Maybe you could have gotten something for him at the deadline rather than losing him in the offseason for nothing. How much is he going to want on his next contract? I have no idea. I think if the Warriors are willing to foot the bill and bring him back, they can maybe work something out. And potentially trade him down the line, but Oubre is the big question, and I am just not sure how he fits with this roster long term. Obviously, it's a lot different when Klay is back and healthy, so I think he's a good player. I think he can have success somewhere. I'm just not sure that it is in this system, and I'm afraid that they're going to lose him for nothing in the offseason. So overall, this Warriors season has been frustrating at points, exciting at points. disappointing at points. It ebbs and flows, and every game with this team is a roller coaster. You never know which team you're going to get on any given night. Obviously, sometimes they get blown out by 50 like they did against the Raptors, except sometimes they can win by a huge margin against good teams. It just happens. I just never understand it. I don't know what to make of this team sometimes. Obviously, Steph Curry is absolutely incredible. This man is... Listen. It is disrespectful at this point to call him the greatest shooter of all time. It's disrespectful because you're minimizing all of his other accomplishments. Saying that he is the greatest shooter of all time is obvious. We all know it. There is no debate anymore. By every stat, by every metric, Steph Curry is the best player, best person in the history of the world to ever pick up a basketball and shoot it. He's the best, okay? There is no debate. The best to ever shoot the basketball, okay? And so when you're talking about Steph Curry, we need to put him in the conversation of greatest point guard of all time. We need to put him in the conversation of most influential player in the history of basketball. We need to put him in conversations of the best player in the league right now. We need to put him in conversations of top 10 in the history of the game. Top 10 player in the history of the league, okay? Steph Curry is in all of those conversations. He should be in the conversation for MVP this year. I get it, the team isn't very good, but clearly he is elevating them to a level far beyond where they would be without him. I don't think he'll win it, and honestly, I wouldn't vote for him, but I do think he deserves to be in that conversation. And Steph Curry is incredible. We need to stop being surprised when stuff like this happens, okay? I'm not surprised. You should not be surprised when Steph Curry hits 11 threes in a game and drops 50 points. It's just not uncommon anymore. This happens on a regular basis, and this guy is simply unbelievable. So I think that's about all I have to say on Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. We are witnessing greatness. If you do not appreciate it, you don't like fun. You don't like fun and you don't like basketball, okay? And that's all I have to say about that. But like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about Steph Curry and the Warriors. What have you thought about their season so far, and where might it go from here? I still think they should make the playoffs, and I still think they can be a tough opponent for anybody who they end up playing in round one. And when you have Steph Curry on your team, anything's possible. But yeah, with all that said, see you guys in the next one.